What is going on, YouTube universe? This is ArghGodzirra. Thank you for taking the time to check out another AFL tips and predictions video. In this particular video, we're going to look ahead to round 11. We're going to reflect on round 10. We're going to look at the AFL team lists and see who is in and out, and give my thoughts on what's going to go down in another week of football. But before we get started, on screen right now, URL, comp code. These can be found in the description of this video if you would like to join my tipping competition. It is absolutely free. Follow those links. Go ahead, get on board. Let's have a good time together. But now that we've got that out of the way, it is time to quickly reflect on the week that was round 10. I tipped 6 out of 9. Not my best outing, but still a solid outing nonetheless. We're going to try to skim over these a bit quicker than what I did last week. We kick things off by tipping Sydney by 13 points.
Fuckhead.
After saying for a very long time that I thought Carlton, and then I went back to Sydney, and then I went back to Carlton. Sydney were coming. Sydney were coming. It was another game where Carlton was almost 40 odd points clear and almost dropped the game. I don't know whether that is going to be sustainable going into finals, because I feel some of the teams in the top 8 wouldn't let that 40-point lead slide. If they caught up, they wouldn't let Carlton run away with the game. They'd put the foot down and they'd keep going. So, a decent win by Carlton, but very shaky in some areas, if I do say so myself. We then went to GMHBA. We knew Geelong was going to do a number on Port, and they did quite comfortably. Down at Mars, we knew the Bulldogs, as I said, play good football down at Ballarat, and they showed just why. You know, just why that is. They got the job done against a valiant Gold Coast Suns. Gold Coast did take it to them for quite a bit. This game here shocked me, because for the most part, it was a 20-point arm wrestle back and forth. And then, all of a sudden, 47 points, Melbourne wins. So, sorry, Nam. They were Nam or Nan. Nam? They weren't Melbourne, that's for sure. St Kilda defeated Adelaide in a game that was, again, another arm wrestle. Adelaide leading for most of the game, and then it came back to a couple of points, and it was going back and forth, and then St Kilda in the last couple of minutes running away with the game. My boys getting it done for the Dreamtime game, despite some injuries out of that game, but we still managed to make it 4 from 4. GWS doing a big number on West Coast like we assumed they would. Probably here, I would say this was one of the best games of the round, but some would argue that the umpiring ruined this game. We backed Brisbane. Hawthorn got the win. A lot of people saying umpires helped Hawthorn. From what I saw, there was a bit of bias going towards Brisbane as well, so say what you will. And then we backed Fremantle at home, and Collingwood just rocked up and made them look absolutely stupid. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with Fremantle. This is a club that I said would push Melbourne to their limits and defeat Melbourne, and they haven't been able to win their last couple of games against opposition that they should have beaten quite comfortably. So with that all being said, as I said, I tipped 6. Looking at the ladder, Pommy Tiger, Rob J, and Tristan H. Congratulations to the both of you guys for tipping 8 out of 9 correct for the round. But I believe Courtney K is still holding it down. She is. Frio90, 66 total tips. 2 points clear of Brighton 75, Kirk G, who is 1 point clear of Saintly 12, Benny P, myself, and Michael T. And then we've got Tritter, Motherfuckers, and Western Zoinkers, Ian P, Shannon H, all on 62. There was still a couple on 61 and 60. But Courtney she's been in command of this competition since the beginning. Courtney, just congratulations. Seriously, you've been showing a lot of people how to get it done. Now, I have gone and put my tips in already, quickly glancing, because what I've been wanting to do with these videos is I've been wanting to wait for these here. I want to wait for the team announcements to show the ins and outs. I think that's going to not only help with my tips, but it might help with your tips as well if you can see in this video who's playing, who isn't playing. But there might be some weeks where we might not get the full team released in time for this video, which would be in the case of a Thursday night game, which will be coming back, I believe, after the bye structure or during the byes. So what I'm thinking of doing is I might do my tipping video earlier in the week, and then later in the week I might do a team announcement video where we have a look at the ins and outs and we maybe rectify some of my tips. I don't know. If that's something you think I should do, let me know in the comments down below. First game kicks off later tonight at the SCG with Sydney taking on Richmond. In for Sydney, James Rowbottom, Matt Roberts and Sam Reid. Matt Roberts making his debut for the club. Will Hayward's going to be playing game 100 as well for the milestones. Colin O'Riordan and James Bell have been omitted, with Josh Kennedy out with the hamstring injury and Tom Hickey out with an injury as well. I think the biggest omission out of Sydney here is Tom Hickey. Don't underestimate his ability to turn Sydney's whole structure around. They've now got to rely on Peter Laddams to do most of the rucking by himself. And Laddams did a little bit too much last week and was continuously caught holding the ball because he was trying to do little man things as a big man. And I don't know whether that's the case of wanting to take opportunity in his own hands, if he wants to try to be the match winner off his own boot. I don't know what the case may be. But Tom Hickey out for Sydney is huge. For Richmond, Jack Graham and Marlon Pickett both come in. 2 huge ins for us. Out, Jake Arts has been omitted. Kane Lambert out injured with a hip injury, which unfortunately has been revealed this week that the surgery he requires will end his career if he chooses to get that hip injury done. As a Richmond supporter, as a Kane Lambert fan, I feel he needs to get the surgery done. I would rather him at this point in time worry about getting a future outside of football as pain-free as possible by getting it done now. And if it means he doesn't play football again, I feel he's got nothing else to prove. This is a guy who was on Carlton's list for so long, couldn't get a game, gets picked up by Richmond, given an opportunity, and all these years later is a 3-time premiership player. He's a club champion, and he can walk away with his head held high. Tom Lynch, hamstring injury. At first, when I saw the knee, I saw the ice pack on his knee, so I thought he's done a knee. But then they moved the ice pack around to the back of the leg. The good news is for him, he's only slated to miss this game, and he should be back after the bye. So Richmond have next week off through the bye rounds, which means Tom Lynch will miss this game, he'll have next week off, and then he should be right to come back the following week. Fingers crossed. Huge out still for Richmond up forward. We're going to have to rely on Soldo to play a more forward prominent role and swap with Nankervis. We might have to use Dusty more forward up, than we would have liked. Maybe someone like a Shea Bolton plays up a little bit more forward than we would have hoped. But we've got the mix to get it done. I have tipped Richmond by 15 points. If you want the clarification, we'll just go over here. I've done it here. Richmond actually go in almost $1 behind. Like, Sydney's heavy favourite to win this game. I can understand why. When you lose someone like Kane Lambert and Tom Lynch, 2 huge outs. But I think Jack Graham, Marlon Pickett make up what Kane Lambert takes out of the team. Tom Lynch, I think, is a little bit too much of a gap to fill for those guys, but we've got players that can stand up in the big occasions. Last time we fought it out at the MCG, it was Sydney by the better part of 10 goals. I think since then, I said a couple of weeks ago, I thought Sydney was one of the teams that could knock Melbourne off and really contend for the premiership. And since saying that, we've seen the downhill trajectory. Sydney, a few times this year, as I've said in previous videos, have left the door open a little bit too much for clubs to get early jumps. They did the same thing against Carlton last week. If Richmond can get the early jump on Sydney, I think that'll set Richmond up to win quite comfortably. I believe in my boys. You're backing against a team that was thereabouts a few weeks ago but has really dropped off the mark, and then you've got a team who has won the last 4, and even though you could compare the last 4 and they haven't beaten really big name clubs, the next month for Richmond is going to be really telling. I think if we beat Sydney here, we'll start to get a little bit more respect, and I think Richmond can make it 5 from 5. I've got to back the systems in. My gut and my head are telling me Richmond will get the win here. At the Gabba, Brisbane taking on GWS. Daniel McStay, Devon Robertson, Marcus Adams in for Brisbane, with Hugh McCluggage out, a huge out for Brisbane. Jack Payne and Tom Fullerton both omitted, which I'll get to in a second. And Mitch Robinson, Medi-sub, dropped again. Now, I had a feeling when Daniel McStay came back into the team, Payne or Fullerton would have to make way. I don't understand why both have to make way. Fox Footy was saying during the week, and I agree with them wholeheartedly, Daniel McStay, the talk all year has been, will he stay at Brisbane or will he go? Or will he McStay or will he McGo, if you will. And a lot of people are really invested in Brisbane trying to keep McStay. However, last week against Hawthorn, Payne and Fullerton both stood up and held their own and showed, hey, if this guy leaves, we're here. Put some time into us, we can fill that gap. And you know what? I reckon Fullerton, if developed properly, can be 10 times the player that McStay is. Which is why it upsets me to see both of these guys dropped. I can understand Jack Payne being dropped maybe, but I wouldn't have dropped both. I would have kept at least Fullerton in to give him some more experience, some more run. Mitch Robinson, I don't know what this bloke has to do to get a fucking run. He's one of Brisbane's, I wouldn't say better players, but he brings a lot to their team. He brings a lot of aggression to the ball. He wins a lot of contests off his own boot. He is a solid player. I do rate him as a player. I feel that he's either coming to the point of his career now where if he's only getting the Medi-sub and he can't get a proper run, that he either needs to assess whether staying in the game is for him or whether moving to another club to get an opportunity, so maybe he moves to the Gold Coast, could be on the cards. I think that might be the move Mitch Robinson needs to look at. For GWS, Lockie Ash, Lockie Keefe both in, Adam Kennedy out with an illness, with Jake Stein, the Medi-sub, dropped, and Xavier O'Halloran omitted. Ash and Keefe, two huge ins, respectively, for GWS, defensively and for their forward line, if they want to use Keefe as a forward, but we've seen Keefe, for the better part of his career, played as a defender at GWS. Huge scalp against West Coast last week, so that would give him a lot of momentum. What I hate to see here is Braden Pruce still not in. And he has been dominating for them. He gets dropped last week due to OH&S protocol. He's still out the side. What do we do? I have no fucking idea. But I think Brisbane quite comfortably should get the win here at home. GWS have proven that they can keep up with some of the better sides, so I'm hoping this is a good game to watch. But I don't think Brisbane drop a game to Hawthorn and then go back to the Gabba and lose at home. I don't see a world where that happens. GMHBA Stadium, Geelong taking on Adelaide. We don't have any ins named yet, but Patrick Dangerfield is out with a calf injury. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with football lingo, the calf injury is referred to as the old man's injury. So Dangerfield has had this calf injury going on and on and on for the past couple of years. I feel it might be coming time for Dangerfield to start wrapping the career up. Especially if this injury keeps nagging and nagging and nagging and keeping him out the side. I don't think it's an immediate needs to retire, but I think it might be an injury that might force his hand a little sooner than he would have liked to have. In for Adelaide, Jordan Butts, and then three huge ins here. Matt Crouch, Riley O'Brien, Wayne Malira. Chase Jones, Kieran Strachan, both omitted, with Joshua Shelley being managed, Lachlan Scholl as the Medi-sub, and Taylor Walker out with OH&S protocol. Matt Crouch in the midfield, huge for Adelaide. Wayne Malira off the halfback flank or even the wing, huge for Adelaide. Riley O'Brien, their number one ruck, who's been dominating the sandful but for whatever reason gets dropped, just omitted. No explanation as to why, just gets dropped from Adelaide's lineup, comes back in. This is a huge game for Adelaide. This is a game that I can envision a world where Adelaide beats Geelong in Geelong. Do I think this week they're going to? No, because I have tipped Geelong to win this game. But if Adelaide were to win, they have brought the personnel in this week to get the job done. I feel Taylor Walker is going to be a huge out for them up forward though. I think Rochelli's going to be a huge out because those are two people that have put a lot of scoreboard pressure on for Adelaide. I'd just like to see a good contest. If Adelaide can come out and put on a good show, I think it'd be great to watch. But I think Geelong should get it done quite comfortably at home. TIO Stadium, Gold Coast taking on Hawthorn. Davies, Graham and Sharp in for the Gold Coast, with Braden Fiorini omitted, Jai Farrar and Rory Thompson injured, and Sean Lemons out with OH&S protocol. I feel for Rory Thompson so much. He has been out of the game for X amount of years due to injury, comes back in, first game or second game or whatever it is. It's only been a couple of games since he's come back, and he goes and injures himself and he's out for a numerous amount of weeks. Never good to see that happen to a player. For Hawthorn, Connor McDonald and Jack Scrimshaw come in, with Jaeger O'Meara injured, as well as Max Lynch and Kyle Hartigan, the Medi sub. Gold Coast a favourite. I have tipped Hawthorn. Gold Coast were very competitive against the Bulldogs, but Bulldogs obviously got the job done. We've already reflected on that. I think Hawthorn's scalp of Brisbane last week is enough momentum and confidence for them to defeat the Gold Coast, who, let's face it, is a lesser side than Brisbane in many retrospects. So let's not mince words. I think, do the Gold Coast take out confidence and momentum out of their loss? I think they do, because they were very competitive. But I think Hawthorn here, O'Meara, okay, yeah, might be a loss for them, but Jack Scrimshaw adds a lot to that defensive lineup. McDonald has showed glimpses. I think Hawthorn is still, on paper, a stronger outfit than the Gold Coast, and they should get the job done away from Melbourne, up at TIO Stadium in the Northern Territory. Neutral ground, I would have thought, but yeah, Gold Coast going in favourite. I don't understand that based on last week, but hey, I think the Hawks are going to get it done this week. Melbourne versus Fremantle. We alluded to this before. Jack Viney is in for Melbourne, with Ed Langdon out injured and Luke Dunstan omitted. Jake Melksham plays game number 200. Now, Ed Langdon's omission through injury, is huge. This guy has been running at 100% game time all year. No breaks. Should easily be All-Australian winger, and if he's not, the selection panel need a smack upside the fucking head. Well and truly within Melbourne's top 5 players, he would be giving a decent push for the best and fairest within the club internally as well. I think outside of Petrarca and Oliver, Langdon's probably polled the most amount of votes for Melbourne, my personal opinion. Fremantle, Brandon Walker and Darcy Tucker in. Bailey Banfield has been omitted. Neil Erasmus as the medical sub, and Sam Switkowski suspended for 2 weeks after doing the good old chicken wing to Jack Ginnivan. As I alluded to before, I said Fremantle could be the team to knock Melbourne off their perch. The last couple of weeks, Fremantle have dropped the ball against teams that they shouldn't have dropped the ball against. It would be very Fremantle-like to come down to the MCG and knock Melbourne off. And if they do, all credit to them. It might restore a little bit of faith in a lot of people. I am still backing Melbourne. I'm still backing Melbourne. If Fremantle had won the last couple of games that I tipped them, and they didn't fucking burn me, I might have actually tipped Fremantle this week. But, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, fucking shame on me. I'm not going to fucking fool myself for the third time. Melbourne should get it done. Even though I feel the outs for Fremantle don't really affect their lineup all that much, the outs for Melbourne probably, as I said, Ed Langdon out is huge, but Dunstan, probably the omission of Dunstan getting Viney in adds a little bit to the team. So Melbourne should rise to the occasion quite comfortably, but as I said, if Fremantle get the win here, I won't be disappointed for getting the tip wrong, and I feel Melbourne are due to get a loss before finals. As I've said again, I've seen a lot of 2018 Richmond in Melbourne. You'd hate for Melbourne to make it to finals and then all of a sudden cop the losses they should have during the year and get eliminated. Just saying. Optus Stadium, West Coast hosting the Bulldogs to round out Saturday night. Josh Kennedy and Sam Petrevski-Seaton in for the West Coast, with Hugh Dixon, Josh Rotham, Patrick Naish omitted. I don't know why Patrick Naish has been omitted. He has been probably one of West Coast's better players all fucking year, and he's been essentially a top-up player that was brought in through the COVID protocol. Hugh Dixon, I don't know what this guy has to do to keep a fucking spot in the team. And Josh Rotham, he's been in and out as well. Obviously, Dixon would be out for Kennedy, Rotham out for Petrevski-Seton, so why drop Patrick Nash? I don't understand. For the Bulldogs, Waitman comes back in with Taylor Duray and Tim English. All big ins for the Bulldogs. Bailey Smith out with illness. Luke Cleary has been omitted. I can't get my head around that because that kid has looked the goods the last couple of weeks. Rourke Smith is the Medi sub. Zane Cordy out omitted as well. I think Bailey Smith's illness is giving him a chance to have a rest against West Coast, who have been deplorable all year. The Bulldogs should win this by at least 10 goals. English back in the ruck, huge. Taylor Duray back in defence adds a lot of more structural dependence that doesn't just now depend on certain other players. He can take that pressure off. I still don't understand why Luke Cleary got dropped though. I really don't. Cody Waitman, he could well and truly kick 5-6 goals this week. It wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I think the Bulldogs come out the goods here. I said a couple of weeks ago I don't think West Coast will win another game for the year. This could be a game that they could win because we have seen the Bulldogs up and down. But I'm sticking by my guns. I really don't see an avenue where West Coast win another game. Sunday, MCG, Collingwood, Carlton. Caleb Poulter, Reef McInnes and Trey Rusco named in with no outs named at the moment for Collingwood. In for Carlton, Jack Martin, Jack Nunes, Jordan Boyd and Paddy Dow, with Brody Kemp out as the medical sub, Lockie O'Brien playing his 50th game. I have tipped Carlton. I think we can all understand why. When you compare the two, Carlton are flying. Collingwood have been, apart from their big win against Fremantle, let's not understate that win, they could have enough momentum here to knock Carlton off. This is going to be a really good clash. It is always good to see Collingwood and Carlton clash. It's also good for us people in Melbourne to know that crime on the streets is going to be at a record low because all the criminals are going to be at the MCG at one given time. But in all seriousness, what Carlton has been dishing up, if they want to finish as a top 4 team, if they want to really put a stamp on this year, this is a must-win game for them. If Collingwood win, they keep chances alive. I just think I've seen more out of Carlton this year than I've seen out of Collingwood. Carlton, I shouldn't have tipped against last week, and I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I'm not going to not tip him last week and then skip on him this week. So Carlton for me, ladies and gentlemen. Port Adelaide taking on Essendon at Adelaide Oval. Charlie Dixon back in for Port Adelaide, huge in. Jed McKenty and Riley Bonner. For Essendon, Andrew Phillips, Brandon Zirk-Thatcher, Brandon Ham, Harrison Jones, Jordan Ridley and Jai Caldwell all in, with Mason Redman out for the deliberate elbow to Richmond's head. Matt Guelphy injured, Nick Bryan omitted. I would argue that Zirk-Thatcher probably comes in for Redman. Ham probably comes in for Guelphy. And Ridley probably comes in for O'Brien. If not Ham, probably Jai Caldwell. So maybe Caldwell, Ridley, and Zirk-Thatcher. If they've named Phillips, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to bring him in as extra power in the ruck. I tipped Port Adelaide here. I just got to double check to make sure. I did tip Port Adelaide here. I think Charlie Dixon coming back in is huge. He could tip the balance up forward for them, and that's something I think that they've been missing. They've been missing, they've got Todd Marshall and they've got the likes of Butters and Rosie and those smaller players that hit the scoreboard. But apart from Todd Marshall getting off the chain, they really haven't had that big, strong, brooding presence, and they're going to get that back. Essendon, the conversation just continues to be had. What the fuck is going on with their year? They pushed Richmond in some retrospect, but they were more, I personally felt, they were more worried about the player than what was going on around the ball, They wanted to go fisticuffs more than win the hard contest. Don't want to do that against Port Adelaide, because Port Adelaide would do what Richmond did and put the hammer down. So, Port Adelaide, for me, quite comfortably on their home turf. And to round out round 11, St Kilda taking on North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium, with Dan Butler, Jared Lynett and Mitch Owens in for the Saints. Jack Mahoney, or Marnie, however you want to say it. Jackson Archer and Jaden Stephenson in for North, with Jackson Archer named to debut. Jack Zeeble, club champion, playing game 250. I have backed St Kilda. I don't know whether you require any, substance from me to validate that selection. North Melbourne, we've got a bottom of the table team that have struggled all year. St Kilda, contending for a top 5 finish. They bring back Dan Butler, huge. Jared Lynett's addition to that defensive lineup this year has been very understated, I feel, as well. I'm keen to see how Jackson Archer goes with opportunity, but I think St Kilda are going to be too good. They should win this by 7 goals quite comfortably. 7 goals for me. So, quickly just round up who I've tipped. I've gone with Richmond, Brisbane, Geelong, Melbourne, Bulldogs, Hawthorn, St Kilda, Carlton, and Port Adelaide. As I said earlier, if you want to see me break down these videos into 2 videos a week, where on the start of the week I do a tipping video, later in the week I do a team announcement video, let me know in the comments down below. I would appreciate it immensely if you hit that like button if you haven't, and subscribed if you haven't, to help myself out a little bit further. It does go a long way to supporting myself and the channel and everything I do, and I do hugely appreciate all the support you give myself. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.